ज्ञानशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नामने गौरत्वसे नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 Hare Krishna. Somebody would like to briefly revise what we discussed yesterday?
Hare
Yes.
Yesterday we discussed how Dhruva Maharaj got empowered upon touching the when Lord touched he got empowered to speak. So in this context we're discussing that how before speaking or writing anything about spiritual subject matter one needs the mercy of the Lord. Then one gets empowered and then we get the example of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami.
Right.
How he was seeking blessings of the Vaishnavas and Lord.
Right. And which is the other example we saw?
We also saw Prabhupada himself.
Okay, Prabhupada. And one more? We saw some quote also.
Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami we discussed.
Shukdev Goswami.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so he got empowered and then he began to recite prayers. So we will continue these prayers of Dhruva Maharaj, Canto 4, Chapter 9. So we finished till text 7. We'll go to text 8. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. Text 8. Let's recite. Tvadataya vayunaye damachashta vishvam supta prabudha ivanata bhavat prapannaha tasyapavargya sharanam tava padamulam vismaryati kritavida katamartabando. O my master, Lord Brahma is fully surrendered unto you. In the beginning, you gave him knowledge, and thus he could see and understand the entire universe, just as a person awakens from sleep and visualizes his immediate duties. You are the only shelter of all persons who desire liberation, and you are the friend of all who are distressed. How, therefore, can a learned person who has perfect knowledge ever forget you? So here, Dhruva Maharaj is describing how initially Lord Brahma was given knowledge by the Lord, and that's how he created the entire universe. So a few points from Srila Prabhupada's purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be forgotten even for a moment by his surrendered devotees. The devotee understands that the Lord's causeless mercy is beyond his estimation. He cannot know how much he is benefited by the grace of the Lord. The more a devotee engages himself in the devotional service of the Lord, the more encouragement is supplied by the energy of the Lord. And then basically Prabhupada is giving the translation of Tesham Satayuktanam Bhajatam Pritipurvakam. Being so encouraged, the devotee can never forget at any moment the personality of Godhead. He always feels obliged to him for having achieved increased power in devotional service by his grace. And the last line of that paragraph, a devotee therefore never forgets the benefit derived from the Lord. The Lord is addressed here as Artha Bandhu, which means friend of the distressed. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, after many births of executing severe austerities in search of knowledge, one comes to the point of real knowledge and becomes wise when one surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Mayavadi philosopher who does not surrender unto the Supreme Person is understood to be lacking in real knowledge. The devotee in perfect knowledge cannot forget his obligation to the Lord at any moment. Hare Krishna. Please go ahead. जाओ जाओ आगे जाओ आगे जाओ. Okay, this is Vishwanath Thakur's commentary on the verse. Please read.
You alone possesses all powers. You are to be worshipped by those who have knowledge, by the devotees, who have knowledge given by you. Those surrendered to you, such as Brahma
Bhavat Prapanna.
Bhavat Prapanna, such as Brahma and the Kumaras, or I am not able to see properly.
Okay, maybe somebody this side can. You are able to see? Okay, somebody this side can.
Those surrender to you, Bhavat Prapanna, such as Brahma and the Kumaras or Jnani Bhaktas, saw the universe by knowledge given by you. How they see like a person who are sleeping and then wakes up. How can a person who knows the favor you have given him ever forget your lotus feet, which are the shelter of the inquisitive devotees, Jigyasu Bhakta, qualified for liberation, Apavarga? One who obtaining knowledge from you and does not worship you is ungrateful. O friend of the suffering devotee, Artha Bhakta, it should be understood that this verse mentioned the three types of devotees according to the Gita verse 7.16.
Okay, so here he's mentioning that how the Lord reciprocates with these three types of devotees as mentioned in the Chaturvida Bhajante Mam verse, Artho, Jigyasur, Artharthi and Jnani. So here the Lord is being addressed as Artha Bandho. So the Lord is the friend of those who are distressed. He relieves the distress of those who are distressed. And so therefore he's called Artha Bandho. He reciprocates with the Artha Bhakta. And then he's saying that the Lord also reciprocates with the Jnani Bhaktas who are such as Brahma and the Kumaras. So here the word Bhavat Prapanna. Bhavat Prapanna is used. In the word to word, Srila Prabhupada translates it as Lord Brahma, who surrendered unto you. So they come in the category of the Jnani Bhaktas. And the Lord gives them the knowledge. He gave Brahma the knowledge by which he could create at the time of creation. You have already studied that in details in the third canto. And Also, the Lord reciprocates with the Jigyasu Bhakta, the inquisitive devotees who are qualified for liberation, apavargya. Tasya apavargya sharanam tava padamulam. So in this way, the Lord reciprocates with all these different types of devotees. And therefore, he's saying, vismaryate krita vida. So how can one forget? How can one forget the mercy which the Lord gives to his devotees? How can one ever forget all the wonderful activities which the Lord is performing for the sake of his devotees? How can one forget the causeless mercy which the Lord is bestowing upon his devotees, which is far beyond one's estimation? Therefore, it is causeless. It is not that I deserve it. Therefore, it is causeless. There is no cause. It is the only reason is that the Lord is Artha Bandho. The only reason is because the Lord is very merciful to those who are distressed, and that is everyone in the material world. And so, therefore, he's saying, how can one forget the mercy of the Lord? Therefore, Srila Prabhupada begins the purport by saying, the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be forgotten even for a moment by his surrendered devotees. Okay, and towards the end of the paragraph, a devotee therefore never forgets the benefit derived from the Lord. So, an important quality which Dhruva Maharaj is teaching all of us through this prayer is the quality of gratitude. And so here we find Dhruva Maharaj expressing his gratitude towards the Lord for having enlivened all his senses, for having spiritualized all his senses, empowered him to understand about the Supreme Lord and offer praise to the Supreme Lord. So Dhruva Maharaj is expressing his gratitude towards the Supreme Lord. And we find that the Supreme Lord himself has this quality of gratitude. Any examples? The Lord was grateful to the gopis. And what did he say? Yes, so he was feeling grateful to the gopis. Some other examples? Okay, Lord Ram and Hanuman, good example. Some other examples? Lord expressing his gratitude. Manmohan Shah.
I ready to love of my.
Right. Okay, fine. Good example. Jay and Vijay, because they were the Lord's servants. The Lord was so grateful to their service that the Lord said, I'm ready to lop off my arm for the mistake. So he was ready to take responsibility for the mistake of his servants. Okay. Yes, Raghu.
Lord was grateful to Mother Draupadi. That how she actually immediately brought, cut out part of her sari and
right. And so the Lord reciprocated. Okay, good. Huh?
Bali Maharaj, Lord was grateful to Bali Maharaj that he agreed to become his doorkeeper.
Okay, and how he reciprocated?
He agreed, he became doorkeeper of Bali Maharaj.
Okay, fine. Any other examples? Yes, Ram sir. Okay, fine. He was grateful to Vibhishan. Yes. Okay, Shamsun. I mean, Sandesh. Okay, yes. He was grateful to Ambarish Maharaj. Any other? There's one very prominent example where the Lord did something very wonderful to reciprocate. Okay, yes. In the third canto, as Uddhav is recollecting the various pastimes of the Lord, he recollects one pastime, and in that, where the Lord shows gratitude, and in that purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, the Lord is never an ingrate to his devotees. Yes, that's right. Sandipani Muni. So he expressed gratitude to Sandipani Muni by bringing his dead son back. So we find that Lord himself has this quality of gratitude. And of course, there's so many other examples, even in the Chaitanya Charitamrita we can see. So So what is the importance of this quality of gratitude for us as practicing devotees, and how can we develop this quality? What is the importance? First of all, what is the importance of this quality for us? Okay, we'll come back to you. Okay, you'll jump. How?
Because if one is grateful, then whatever is coming in his life, he'll appreciate it. He'll take it in a positive spirit.
Okay, yes, that's correct. So good qualities can develop if we have that quality. Yes, some other points. What is the role? What is the importance of gratitude in our lives? Okay, Sunana.
If we are grateful, we will not take anything for granted in our life. And when we don't take it for granted, we make the best use of it, be it association of devotees around or the opportunity to practice bhakti in our lives.
Okay.
No offenses happen, and we make swift progress also.
Okay, if we are grateful, then we will not take things for granted. We will value everything that we have received. Okay.
Prabhuji, online devotees.
Yes, please go ahead.
Prabhuji, when we will be grateful, we'll always be humble, that we know that these qualities or these things are given by the Lord, and they whenever the Lord wants, he will take it away from us. Whenever he wants to give, he will give us. So we will always be in a humble position, and we'll always try to be in the mood of trying to be the servant of the servant, Prabhuji.
Okay, very good point. So humility, gratitude will lead to humility, that actually I don't deserve all this, but the Lord has causelessly given these things. So one will always remain in humble mood. Good point. Thank you. Anybody else online? No. Okay, go ahead.
If we are grateful, then only we'll have proper service attitude also. Because gratitude leads to that feeling of being indebted, and then one wants to actually give himself, offer himself to serve more and more.
Okay, so
it acts like a fuel.
Okay, when one is grateful, then one will have the proper service attitude, because one wants to repay. One wants to repay if one is grateful, repay for what one has received, and so one will develop the right service attitude. Good point. Some other points. Sona Gargmar.
Grateful heart always counts blessings. Ungrateful heart only complains.
Yes, so we can count our blessings. We can be grateful for what we have received. Right? Something else? Ramsam?
I recently read a quote by Radhanath Swami Maharaj. He mentioned a grateful heart is a humble heart.
Yes, yeah. That's right. Yes, if one is grateful, one can be humble. That's right. Shamji.
Gratitude makes the heart fertile to receive bhakti.
What's the connection?
In that, because one is ready to reciprocate for whatever is getting, and in that way, that service attitude also increases, and then he can this increases bhakti, because bhakti is loving relationship basically.
Okay.
So it makes the heart fertile for receiving bhakti.
Okay, very good point. Yes, Toshan Mahaprabhu. Okay, so the devotee, if he's grateful, he understands whether it's happiness, misery, every situation is for my benefit. Okay, he takes it in the right attitude, good, right spirit. Very good point. Yes, sir. So one who's ungrateful is always miserable in general. Why do you say that? But what's your understanding? Bolo? What's your understanding? Why one who's ungrateful is always miserable? Yes, that's a good point. So if one is so if one is ungrateful, then one will always demand more and more. Yes. And if one does not get, then one will be frustrated and miserable. That's right. Yes, Deshan.
तो अगर कोई जो ग्रेटफुल नहीं है तो उसका डिमांड ज़्यादा रहता है, अभी जो बोल रहे हैं उसका कंक्लूजन है ना, तो वो सेटिस्फाइड नहीं रहता है, ऑलवेज डिमांडिंग। तो फिर कोई अथॉरिटी बन गया और सब ऑर्डिनेट से वो फिर समझो वो ग्रेटफुल नहीं है कि सबसे तुमने ये नहीं किया, इसने ये नहीं किया, वो मॉर्निंग में नहीं आया, सोया नहीं, खाया नहीं, तो ऑलवेज तो अथॉरिटी का रहता है कि ये लोग ऐसे ही, ये करते ही नहीं, तो फिर उसे क्या समझना चाहिए, वो सेटिस्फाइड है या नहीं है, या ग्रेटफुल है या नहीं।
तो दोनों को ग्रेटफुल रहना चाहिए ना, अथॉरिटी को भी सबऑर्डिनेट को भी, दोनों को ही रहना चाहिए।
हाँ नहीं, तो हम यार सब बोल रहे हैं कि वो जो सेटिस्फाइड रहता है, जो ग्रेटफुल है वो
तो सबके लिए एप्लीकेबल है ना, अथॉरिटी हो, सबऑर्डिनेट हो, छोटा भक्त हो, बड़ा भक्त हो, सबके लिए लागू होता है ना।
हाँ सबके लिए होता है, हाँ। लेकिन कंप्लेन जो बोल रहे हैं ना कि जो श्याम बोल रहे थे कि जो ग्रेटफुल नहीं वो ऑलवेज कंप्लेन करता है।
करेक्ट, पॉइंट वही है, जो भी हो। ओके, Sundar Shampur, you wanted to say some final conclusive words?
It makes heart soft, which is very conducive for spiritual practices. Otherwise also it is offense-free zone completely. It will be very conducive. That's why it is said the attitude of gratitude decides one's altitude. How high you are in spiritual life is decided by how grateful you are. And because everything we receive in life, so to say good or bad, is all arrangement of the Lord coming through this person, that person is immaterial. It's the instrument of our karma only. So if you are grateful, that means you accept honestly that I was a culprit, I have done misdeeds, so I'm just getting the due. In fact, our Lord is reducing. So this gratitude is very conducive, as Toshan Mahaprabhu also indicating.
Yes, good. Thank you. That was a good conclusion. The attitude of gratitude decides our altitudes. Good. That was a good conclusive point. So how can we develop this quality? A few points on that. How can we develop, or how can we increase this quality? Jam Jagannath.
Think about contemplate. Then we can understand, and also being in the association of those who are grateful.
Okay, good point. So if we contemplate on the benefits of gratitude, that's what we have been doing now. We have been discussing on the benefits, why to be grateful. So if we contemplate, discuss this, then we'll try to develop it also. Good point. Somebody else? Yes, how much?
That Srila Prabhupada write in Ajamila section that one should always remember that what life I was living before and how I've saved now in Krishna consciousness. So in this way, will we remain always grateful?
Yes, good point. Yes, if we Prabhupada writes that one should always remember what was my condition before, what's my condition now, who is responsible, who has saved me. So one can always contemplate on that. Some other points? Yes, Raghav.
So it's basically, we should be, gratitude is an aspect of knowledge. So becoming aware. So reflecting on the blessings what we are receiving. So being aware of, actually just a matter of accepting the reality, how we have been blessed by so many ways. So counting on those blessings, that's how we could become grateful.
Yes, so remembering the blessings, all the wonderful things that we received, yes, then we can be grateful.
Yeah, almost same point that we should always remember that whenever I had crisis in my spiritual life, then who all devotees helped me in my spiritual life, and we should always keep those devotees in our heart and know that I could not have been standing like this in my life if these devotees would not have contributed like that.
Yes, so contemplating on all the benefits we received, and ultimately definitely understanding how the Supreme Lord through so many different agents has given me so many benefits, so many wonderful things for my practice of devotional service. Let's go to the next verse, text 9. Nunam vimushtamatayastabhamayate ye tvam bhavapyaya vimokshanamanya heto archanti kalpatarum kunapopabhogyam icchanti yat sparshajam niraye piniranam. Translation. 9.
Persons who worship you simply for the sense gratification of this bag of skin are certainly influenced by your illusory energy. In spite of having you, who are like a desire tree and are the cause of liberation from birth and death, foolish persons such as me desire benedictions from you for sense gratification, which is available even for those who live in hellish conditions.
So he's referring to, so the previous verse spoke about the 3 kinds of mixed devotees, Artho, Jigyasu, and Gyani. This verse speaks about the Artharthi devotee. And Dhruva Maharaj is referring to himself, that I have been the Artharthi Bhakta, and who simply worship you for the sake of sense gratification. And he calls, and he says that such person is Vimushta Matayaha. They have lost their intelligence by Tava Maya, by the influence of your illusory energy. And so therefore, in spite of having you, who are like a desire tree, so you are like a desire tree, Kalpaka Tarum. So you're like a desire tree, you're ready to give anything. So you're ready to give prema, you're ready to give material benefits, anything you're ready to give. But I have been so foolish that I desired simply sense gratification for this bag of skin. And so in this way here, Dhruva Maharaj is condemning himself, and he's repenting that he asked for material sense gratification in spite of having the opportunity to get prema. So he says that this sort of sense gratification is available niraye. Niraye, here Prabhupada translates it as who live in hellish conditions, also referring to the hogs who are living in almost like hellish conditions, such abominable conditions. So he's referring to the hogs and dogs who live in hellish conditions. Sense gratification is available even to them, but I asked for that type of sense gratification. So in this way, he is condemning himself. Text 10. Ya nivritis-tanubritam tava pada padma dhyanad bhavat janakata shravanena vasyat sa brahmani swamahimani api natha mabhut kim tva antakasi lulitat patatham vimanat.
My Lord, the transcendental bliss derived from meditating upon your lotus feet or hearing about your glories from pure devotees is so unlimited that it is far beyond the stage of Brahmananda, wherein one thinks himself merged in the impersonal Brahman as one with the Supreme. Since Brahmananda is also defeated by the transcendental bliss derived from devotional service, then what to speak of the temporary blissfulness of elevating oneself to the heavenly planets, which is ended by the separating sword of time. Although one may be elevated to the heavenly planets, he falls down in due course of time.
Okay. So in the previous verse, Dhruva Maharaj said, Bhavapyaya Vimokshanam. He said that, my dear Lord, you are capable of liberating one from Bhava Apyaya, from the cycle of birth and death. So then the next question arises, if you are able to give free one from the cycle of birth and death and give liberation, so then does it mean that one merges into the impersonal Brahman? Vishnu Thakur writes, since you mentioned that Lord gives freedom from birth and death as a result of worship, Lord must be, so one must be merging in Brahman, since this is devoid of enjoyment of the material body. So he's saying in the previous verse, he said that you are actually capable of giving liberation. So liberation means one merges into the impersonal Brahman. That must be the result of worshipping you. So that is what he's, so that's the link between the previous verse and this verse. So Dhruva Maharaj says, no, that is, so that is not what I'm desiring for. I'm not desiring for merging into the impersonal Brahman. Rather, I'm desiring pure devotional service, meditating on the lotus feet, hearing about your glories. Dhyanat bhava janakatha shravanena. So tava pada padma dhyanat. So what I desire is meditating on your lotus feet, hearing about your glories. And that is the happiness one derives by that is much higher than Brahmananda or merging into the impersonal Brahman. So that is what I am desiring. And then what to speak of those who want to go to the heavenly planets, as far as they are concerned. Kimtva antakasi lulitat patatam vimanat. So just like the airplanes, when the fuel is exhausted, they fall down. So similarly, those who go to the heavenly planets, ultimately, when the pious credits are exhausted, they have to come down. So Dhruva Maharaj is saying that is not what I'm desiring. I'm not desiring going to the heavenly planets or merging into the impersonal Brahman, but I'm desiring simply to meditate on your lotus feet and hear about your wonderful qualities, because the happiness one derives by that is much higher than Brahmananda. So you can see Prabhupada is referring to that in his purport. The transcendental bliss derived from devotional service, primarily from Shravanam, Kirtanam, hearing and chanting, cannot be compared to the happiness derived by karmis by elevating themselves to the heavenly planets, or by jnanis or yogis who enjoy oneness with the supreme impersonal Brahman. The Lord can give relief from the chain of birth and death. It is a misunderstanding to think, as do the monists, that when one gets relief from the process of birth and death, he merges into the supreme Brahman. Here it is clearly said that the transcendental bliss derived from Shravanam Kirtanam by pure devotees cannot be compared to Brahmananda, or the impersonal conception of transcendental bliss derived by merging into the absolute. So that is why we were hearing the other day that Radhishan Prabhu was speaking about how Dhruva Maharaj in his prayers, he's praying that I don't want this impersonal liberation, rather I want millions of years in order to hear the wonderful glories of the Lord. So that is what the devotee desires. In the next paragraph, Prabhupada is speaking about the position of the karmis who want to go to the heavenly planets. Kshine punye martilokam vishanti. So those are the last line of the purport. Those are elevated to the heavenly planets, unlike airplanes which drop when they run out of fuel. So just on the point of, we were discussing about gratitude in the previous verse, a very important example is the example of Arjuna when the Lord disappeared from this earth. So that time we see Arjuna recollecting all the past times and all the various incidents when the Lord helped them. Big list he's giving of all the various incidents. So one important purport, I thought of just showing that. Okay, you already have it. And just show the title. That's the reference. Please read.
You alone.
Wait. Go ahead. Sorry. Yes, this one.
The power and energy which were bestowed upon Arjuna were required for fulfillment of the mission of the Lord. But when his mission was fulfilled, the emergency powers were withdrawn from Arjuna, because the astounding powers of Arjuna, which were astonishing even to the denizens of heaven, were no longer required, and they were not meant for going back to Godhead. If endowment of powers and withdrawal of powers by the Lord are possible even for a great devotee like Arjuna, or even the demigods in the heaven, then what to speak of the ordinary living beings who are but figs compared to such great souls? The lesson is therefore that no one should be puffed up for his powers borrowed from the Lord. The sane man should rather feel obliged to the Lord for such benefactions, and must utilize such power for the service of the Lord. Such power can be withdrawn at any time by the Lord. So the best use of such power and opulence is to engage them in the service of the Lord.
Yes. So there's an important lesson that Srila Prabhupada is saying here. So if one is not grateful for what one has received, the powers, the benedictions one has received from the Lord, if one is not grateful, what will happen? They'll be taken away at any point of time. And so therefore, Prabhupada is writing here, the sane man should rather feel obliged to the Lord for such benefactions and must utilize such power for the service of the Lord. So if we are grateful for what we have received, then we will utilize them properly in the service of the Lord and not be proud about them. In another purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, one must not be proud of borrowed plumes. So everything what we have is all borrowed. Nothing is ours. In one lecture, Srila Prabhupada is saying, if the Lord does not will, not one word will come out of my mouth. Not one word. It's a fact. So what can we do? What can we do? At any moment, if there is paralysis, vocal cords, hand, leg, anything can get paralyzed at any moment, then what can we do? We may be proud. We can do so many wonderful things. But unless the Lord allows us, what can we do? So therefore, if we are grateful, then we will remain humble and we will use whatever we have in the service of the Lord. Okay. So yes, that's an important point here. Okay, so therefore, the Lord is, Dhruva Maharaj is saying, I don't want this merging into the impersonal Brahman or going to the heavenly planets, but I simply want devotional service. But how can devotional service be performed? Devotional service can only be performed in the association of devotees. And so therefore, in the next verse, he is praying to the Lord for the association of devotees. And so we have this famous verse, the 11th verse. Bhaktim muho pravahatam tvayi me prasango bhuyadananta mahatam amala ashayanam yenan jasol banamaru bhavabdhim neshe bhavad gunakatam ritapanamattaha.
Dhruva Maharaj continued, O unlimited Lord, kindly bless me so that I may associate with great devotees who engage in your transcendental loving service constantly, as the waves of a river constantly flow. Such transcendental devotees are completely situated in an uncontaminated state of life. By the process of devotion service, I shall surely be able to cross the nascent ocean of material existence, which is full with the waves of blazing fire-like dangers. It will be very easy for me, for I am becoming mad to hear about your transcendental qualities and pastimes, which are eternally existent.
So very, very important purport. Practically every sentence here is extremely important, filled with so much of meaning. So you can kindly read the purport, please.
The significant point in Dhruva Maharaj's statement is that he wanted the association of pure devotees. The transcendental devotion service cannot be complete and cannot be relishable without the association of devotees. We have therefore established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Anyone who is trying to be aloof from this Krishna Consciousness society and yet engage in Krishna Consciousness is living in a great hallucination. For this is not possible. From this statement by Dhruva Maharaj, it is clear that unless one is associated with the devotees, his devotional service does not mature, does not become distinct from material activities. The Lord says, Hatam prasangan mamavir samvido bhavanti hrutkarna rasayana. Only in the association of pure devotees can the words of Lord Krishna be fully potent and relishable to the heart and ear. Dhruva Maharaj explicitly wanted the association of devotees. That association in devotion service is just like the waves of an incessantly flowing river. In our Krishna conscious society, we have full engagement 24 hours a day. Every moment of our time is always busily engaged in the service of the Lord. This is called the incessant flow of devotional service.
Okay, so we'll just discuss a few points here before we go ahead. So here we find Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that how here Dhruva Maharaj, he's directly seeing the Supreme Lord. He's right in front of the Supreme Lord, but yet he's praying for the association of devotees. Srila Prabhupada is writing here, transcendental devotional service cannot be complete and cannot be relishable without the association of devotees. Somebody would like to explain the statement, please? Yes, Antadev.
So Sadhu Sangha forms the foundation to the entire process of devotion service. And as one goes ahead in the stages of devotion service, Sadhu Sangha just expands and becomes deeper. So it doesn't transcendental loving service cannot be complete without Sadhu Sangha first being manifest, and cannot be relishable also. Because mat chitta madgata prana bodhanta parasparam. Devotees discuss with each other the transcendental activities of the Lord. So that makes it very relishable.
Yes. Okay, good. Thank you. Wonderful points. Somebody would like to add to that? How devotional service cannot be complete and relishable without the association of devotees. Okay, yes, Ram said. Okay. Object of worship is Lord, no? Acha. Mm-hmm. Mm. Correct. Right. Correct. Correct. Good point. Yes. So Lord is never separated. So serving the Lord means serving his devotees, being in the association of devotees. Okay, good point. Okay, you have the mic there.
So same thing what Discuss Ramsik was telling that so many of the angas like hearing from no, pure devotees or even means where we accept a spiritual master also taking shelter of this pure devotee also. So many aspects of devotional service actually depends when we have devotees with us. So and as Prabhuji was telling that Lord considers the worship of a devotee more important than his own. So that way, that becomes complete only when we have devotees.
Yes.
Otherwise, it is not possible that way.
So this is only applicable for sadhakas, right?
No, it's for all, Puji, because that principle remains all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Means
no, when one is advanced, one can do alone also, isn't it?
No, but how will he please the Lord by serving a devotee?
Mm-hmm. Okay, somebody was telling some example. Bolo. Bharat Maharaj. What happened to Bharat Maharaj? Yes, yesterday we were saying it's good. It's good everyone speaks in mic, because if you don't speak in mic, then those online devotees will think why there is silence for some time in between. There are pauses in between. That's how they will perceive. So
Bharat Maharaj case, like if some devotees are there with Bharat Maharaj, then will tell that this is wrong.
correct. Very important point. The example of Bharat Maharaj. Prabhupada writes in the purport to 5:12:14. Very important purport. Prabhupada writes that unless the reason why Bharat Maharaj fell down was because he did not have the association of a spiritual master. So even somebody who's so elevated as Bharat Maharaj on the platform Bhava, but still the cause of his fall down was because there was no one to correct him at the right time. So therefore the association is always important. And therefore we find even the 6 Goswamis were always associating with each other in the courtyard of the Radha Damodar temple. The 6 Goswamis were also associating with each other. So yes, so devotional service cannot be complete and relishable without the association of devotees. We have therefore established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Anyone who's trying to be aloof from this Krishna conscious society and yet engage in Krishna consciousness is living in a great hallucination, for this is not possible. So therefore one cannot think that I can practice devotional service without the association of devotees, without the ISKCON society. So it is not possible. Prabhupada is very clearly saying it is impossible. So therefore there is no need to make any experiments with the words of the founder Acharya. So it is very clear. And also Prabhupada is saying, unless one is associated with devotees, his devotional service does not mature. It does not become distinct from material activities. Somebody would like to explain this? How it becomes distinct from material activities by being in the association. It will be nice if everyone participates. So otherwise we're seeing the same devotees participating. So everyone can participate. It's not that there is a absolute right and absolute wrong and one will be punished for wrong answers. So everyone can contribute. All our senior devotees here, you can contribute your wonderful realizations. And online devotees also. How many are online? 21 devotees are online. Hare Krishna, all online devotees, we are kindly requesting for your valuable contributions and participation. Okay, so Can somebody
Can I speak, Prabhu?
Yes, yes, please. Who's that?
Satyapriya Das.
Yes, yes, please. Go ahead.
Prabhuji, unless in the association of devotees, we understand what is exactly material and what is exactly spiritual. When we are in the material circle, we hardly able to distinguish if I am doing my spiritual life or not. But in association, yes, that makes us we are always discussing this is material, this is spiritual. So then naturally we are always trying to take shelter of the spiritual things.
Right, right. Very good point. Yes, very good point. Yes, so if we are not in the association, then we may be performing material activities, but our mind may justify that, no, it's all right, it is spiritual. But when we are in the association, just like Bharat Maharaj, again, the same example. So Bharat Maharaj was thinking everything is going fine, no problem. But if there was some devotee with him, then devotee may have reminded him, this attachment to the deer is becoming too much. So somebody would have cautioned him. So therefore, because as we were discussing in a previous class also, on one's own, it is very difficult to find out whether I'm on the proper spiritual path or material path. The mind will always justify, because the mind is influenced by the modes, mind will justify. So therefore, only in the association, then somebody will be there who's there to guide us, then they can see whether we are on the proper path, whether we're performing spiritual activities, material activities. And that's how then we stick to the spiritual path, then that's how the devotional service can become mature. Right. Okay. Okay, fine. Please continue reading. Next paragraph. Read. Okay. So,
Mayavadi philosopher may question us. You may be very happy in the association of devotees, but what is your plan for crossing the ocean of material existence? Dhruva Maharaj's answer is that it is not very difficult. He clearly says that this ocean can be crossed very easily if one simply becomes mad to hear the glories of the Lord. Bhavad Guna Katha. For anyone who persistently engages in hearing the topics of the Lord from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, and who is actually addicted to this process, just as one becomes addicted to intoxicants, it is very easy to cross the nescience of material existence. The ocean of material nescience is compared to a blazing fire, but to a devotee, this blazing fire is insignificant because he is completely absorbed in devotional service. Although the material world is blazing fire, to a devotee it appears full of pleasure. Vishwam Purna Sukhayate.
Yes, so the Mayavadis were very interested in liberation, getting out. So the question may be raised, okay, you're very happy over here in the association of devotees, but what about crossing the ocean of material existence, getting liberated? So the answer is that yes, liberation is just a byproduct for a devotee. That is automatically going to happen. And so therefore, the devotee is so absorbed in the glories of the Lord, as Prahlad Maharaj says. What does Prahlad Maharaj say? Tvad-virya gayana mahamrita magna chitta. I'm totally absorbed in the wonderful pastimes of the Lord. And so therefore, I'm not interested in liberation, but I'm more interested in all these other people who are engrossed in material activities. So therefore, when the devotee is engrossed in Shravanam, Kirtanam, and the activities of devotional service, so he is hardly affected by the miseries of the material world. And therefore, liberation is not his goal. He is absorbed in devotional service, even in this material world, in the association of devotees. So therefore, I was just hearing a lecture of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was saying, the devotee understands that whatever activities I'm performing here in the association of devotees, same activities I'm going to perform in Vaikuntha also. What is the difference? So therefore, the devotee doesn't even actually desire to go back to Vaikuntha, because he's happy here in the association of devotees, hearing, chanting, performing devotional activities. And so therefore, that is how, although the material world is a blazing fire, to a devotee it is Vishwam Purna Sukhayate, because he is totally absorbed in devotional activities. Therefore, he does not even experience the miseries of the material worlds. And therefore, and of course, the liberation becomes a byproduct for a devotee. Mukti, Muklita Anjali, Sevate Asman. Prabhupada very often quoted from Bilvamangal Thakur. And the last paragraph, please.
The purport of this statement by Dhruva Maharaj is that devotional service in the association of devotees is the cause of the development of further devotional service. By devotional service only, one is elevated to the transcendental planet Golok Vrindavan. And there also there is only devotional service. For the activities of devotional service, both in this world and in the spiritual world, are one and the same. Devotional service does not change. The example of a mango can be given here. If one gets unripe mango, it is still a mango, and when it is ripe, remains the same mango, but it has become more tasteful and relishable. Similarly, there is devotional service performed according to the direction of the spiritual master and the injunctions of the regulative principles of the Shastra. And there is devotional service in the spiritual world, rendered directly in the association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But they are both the same. There is no change. The difference is that one stage is unripe and the other is ripe and more relishable. It is possible to mature in devotional service only in the association of devotees.
Okay, so this is a famous example of the unripe mango and the ripe mango. So both are mango, whether it's devotional service here or devotional service in the spiritual world. But the difference is in the spiritual world or in spiritual consciousness, it becomes more relishable because one is in the right consciousness, one is performing for the pleasure of the Lord. And here, of course, when one is on the sadhana platform, then one is still performing the same devotional activities, same devotional service, but because of our various conditionings and so on, there could be various impediments. But ultimately, we have to understand that if we remain connected to the association of devotees, then that's how the devotional service can become right, more relishable. The important point is to remain in the association of devotees. Okay, so go next one here. This is Vishwanath Thakur's commentary on the verse. Please read.
Bhakti composed of hearing and chanting will not be sweet without proper association. Therefore, Dhruva prays for the association of those who continually perform bhakti. But then he will start.
You can always read those Sanskrit words.
Pravahatam, pravahatam.
Continually perform. Pravaha, like the flowing of a river. Right? So in the association of devotees, therefore Prabhupada is writing here, the devotional service is supposed to flow like a river. Therefore he's saying in our movement, there is 24 hours engagement in devotional service. So the devotional service continuously flows without any impediment. Okay.
But then he will still have fear of ocean of suffering caused by samsara. Raising his hands in pride, Dhruva speaks, I will overpower the terrible ocean of material life full of countless pains by the strength of that association. Let it come before me. Let us see. Nothing is impossible for me. I will be drunk with tasting the nectar of your qualities and pastimes. The qualities of material life such as rivalry, ignorance, and hatred cannot make this drunkard suffer. Even death cannot touch the person who has drunk immortal nectar. By bhakti produced from association with devotees, one directly meets the Lord. Then one again prays for association with devotees. This indicates that bhakti in the form of association with devotees is the cause of bhakti and bhakti is the result of bhakti. Thus, this verse states the opinion of the devotees.
Okay, so in this way, Dhruva Maharaj is saying the suffering doesn't matter, let even death come, no problem. I will be absorbed in devotional service in the association of devotees. So we find this association of devotees is a very, very important principle in the practice of devotional service. In Nectar of Instruction, Rupa Goswami speaks about it twice in the second and third verse. So we just thought of showing some important quotes of Srila Prabhupada from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And when he describes to Rupa Goswami about the growth of the Bhakti Lata, in that connection, Srila Prabhupada has given some very, very important purports and instructions for devotees. Please read. I think a little smaller font. I think. Maybe somebody in front can read it because a little smaller it looks like.
Keeping up the company of non-devotees. While the Bhakti Kripa is growing, the devotee must protect it by fencing it all around. The neophyte devotee must be protected by being surrounded by pure devotees. In this way, he will not give the maddened elephant a chance to uproot his Bhakti Kripa. When one associates with non-devotees, the maddened elephant is set loose. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said, Asat Sanga Tyaga, Ai Vaishnavachar. The first business of a Vaishnava is to give up the company of non-devotees. A so-called mature devotee, however, commits a great offense by giving up the company of A so-called mature devotee, however, commits a great
Previous one, why you change?
A so-called mature devotee, however, commits a great offense by giving up the company of pure devotees. The human being is a social animal, and if one gives up the society of pure devotees, he must associate with non-devotees, Atsat Sangha. By contacting non-devotees and engaging in non-devotional activities, a so-called mature devotee will fall victim to the mad elephant offense. Whatever growth has taken place is quickly uprooted by such an offense. One should therefore be very careful to defend the creeper by fencing it in. That is, by following the regulative principles and associating with pure devotees.
So the Bhakti Lata has to be fenced. And what is the fencing? The fencing is these two things. Following the regulative principles. So which are the regulative principles? 64 angas of bhakti. Regulative principles are not the 4 prohibitions. Those are not regulative. Regulative principles of bhakti means 64 regulative principles and associating with pure devotees. This is the fencing. So Srila Prabhupada in this purport has used at least 2-3 times. He's spoken about associating with pure devotees. So who's a pure devotee? Do we have pure devotees around, or very difficult to find them? What's your understanding? Yes, Prabhu.
Those who are following the pure message of the spiritual master, they are on the path of becoming pure devotee.
Yes. So that's what Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami says. Anyone who's following the path of pure devotional service is a pure devotee. Right? So anyone who's sincerely following is to be considered a pure devotee. When Srila Prabhupada was asked, how many pure devotees are there in the moment? He said, how many devotees are there? That many pure devotees. So we have the great fortune of being surrounded by so many pure devotees. So this is our great opulence that we are surrounded by so many pure devotees. Prabhupada is writing, the neophyte devotee must be protected by being surrounded by pure devotees. So just see the great gift that Srila Prabhupada has given us, that we are being surrounded by so many pure devotees. And thus our Bhakti Lata is being protected by being surrounded by pure devotees. And what is the result of that? He will not give the maddened elephant a chance to uproot the bhakti creeper. So what is the connection between this? Associating with devotees, associating with non-devotees, and the mad elephant. What is the connection between these three? Somebody would like to explain?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Prabhuji, sorry. So when we associate with materialists, then our material desires will increase, and we will have a material outlook towards even devotional service and devotees. So that is how there is a connection, that if we have association of non-devotees, then this material outlook will develop, and then the mad elephant offense will happen of aparadh towards devotees.
Yes, that's right. As Prabhupada says here, when one associates with non-devotees, the maddened elephant is set loose. So do we associate with non-devotees? Or what are the ways in which there is a possibility of associating with non-devotees? What are the possible ways in which one could associate with non-devotees while living in the association of devotees? Question is clear?
Yes, please. Can I say, please?
Yes, please go ahead.
Our mind is right now at immature stage. It's a materialistic.
Yes, one thing is the association with our own minds and all the various materialistic desires of the mind. That's one way in which we could associate with non-devotees. What else? Yes, Rahul.
Instead of doing the right kind of jigyasas to advance in Krishna consciousness, one can have wrong kind of curiosities and jigyasas, which may be mundane. So that way, even though he may be surrounded, but he will actually catch the wrong vibrations only because of his own
Okay, so he has a wrong inquisitiveness. And what does he do to fulfill that? You said he has a wrong inquisitiveness, right? So, and then what does he do to fulfill that?
Then he does prajalpa that way. He gets into...
Okay, so, mundane talk. Okay, what else? Yes, Yogendra Prabhu? Social media, what happens? Okay, through social media, internet, we could get influenced by so many materialistic vibrations. That's correct. What else? What are other ways in which one can be influenced by asatsang while remaining in the association of devotees? What is one important source of association?
Srila Prabhupada's
Books. So we have the opportunity for right association through these books, or we could, in the name of preaching, read so many other books and get the wrong association. Because when one reads any book, one is actually associating with the author. And we have seen cases like this where devotees, in the name of preaching, went on to read so many other books from the outside worlds, and then after some years they said, I think so these other authors are better than Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada speaks very simply. So that's what happens. So therefore one has to be very careful, otherwise the maddened elephant is set loose. And so therefore Prabhupada says here, the first business of a Vaishnava is to give up the company of non-devotees. Srila Prabhupada in this purports uses this phrase very often, a so-called mature devotee. Prabhupada uses this phrase very often in these purports here in the CC. So a so-called mature devotee, somebody who's neophyte, somebody who's new, he's usually very careful. He thinks, anyways, I'm new, let me be careful. So he's usually very careful to follow everything nicely. And somebody who's actually mature, he's also always serious, he's also always careful, because the actually mature devotee, he always remains humble. He never thinks I'm advanced, I'm mature. So he's also careful. The problem comes with whom? The person in between, the so-called mature devotee. So he's not actually mature, but he imagines himself to be mature. And therefore, then he lands up in problem. Then he thinks, theek hai, sab kuch chalta hai. So then he gives up the company of devotees, and then he can get into wrong zones. And then by contacting non-devotees, engaging in non-devotional activities, again Prabhupada says, a so-called mature devotee will fall victim to the mad elephant offense. And so therefore, one has to be extremely careful about one's association. And another very important purport, next one. Okay, read.
Even if one thinks that there are many pseudo devotees or non-devotees in the Krishna consciousness society, still one should stick to the society. If one thinks the society's members are not pure devotees, one can keep direct company with the spiritual master. And if there is any doubt, one should consult the spiritual master. However, unless one follows the spiritual master's instructions concerning the regulatory principles and chanting and hearing the holy name of the Lord, one cannot become a pure devotee. By one's mental concoctions, one falls down. By associating with non-devotees, one breaks the regulatory principles and is thereby lost.
So you can see how Srila Prabhupada is emphasizing so much on remaining within ISKCON. He's saying that even if one thinks it's not reality, but even if one thinks that there are only pseudo devotees or non-devotees within ISKCON, still Prabhupada says one must stick to the society. Still one must not leave. And we know how His Honor's Bhakti Dhruva Maharaj would often repeat that instruction which he received from Srila Prabhupada, never leave ISKCON. Because as Srila Prabhupada himself said, it's the movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna himself has taken birth in this movement. So the movement is extremely potent and powerful. And so therefore, there are many quotes like this, but here this is a very prominent one where Srila Prabhupada says that even if one thinks that everyone is pseudo-devotee, non-devotee, still one must not leave. And okay, one thinks nobody is worth associating with, okay, at least one person you associate with your spiritual master. But then follow his instructions. Otherwise, by one's mental concoctions, one falls down. So by associating with non-devotees, one breaks the regulative principles and is thereby lost. Another important quote in the same series. Next.
One who is actually serious about advancing in devotional service should desire only to satisfy the previous acharyas. Echaya Gosai Yara Mohi Tara Das. One should always think of oneself as a servant of the acharyas, and thinking this, one should live in the society of Vaishnavas. However, if one thinks that he has become very mature and can live separate from the association of Vaishnavas, and thus gives up all the regulative principles due to offending a Vaishnava, one's position becomes very dangerous. Offenses against the holy name are explained in Adi Lila chapter 8 verse 24. Giving up the regulative principles and living according to one's whims is compared to a mad elephant, which by force uproots the Bhakti Lata and breaks it into pieces. In this way, the Bhakti Lata shrivels up. Such an offense is especially created when one disobeys the instructions of the spiritual master. This is called Guru Avagnya. The devotee must therefore be very careful not to commit offenses against the spiritual master by disobeying his instructions. As soon as one is deviated from the instructions of the spiritual master, the uprooting of the Bhakti Lata begins, and gradually all the leaves dry up.
Okay, so in the association of devotees, what must be the attitude with which one lives? Servant of the acharyas. And thinking like this, one should live in the society of Vaishnavas. So again, Prabhupada says, if one thinks that he has become very mature, that's always the problem. If one thinks he has become mature, then that's a problem. Then he thinks no need of association, then he can give up following the instructions of the spiritual master, and then all the problems begin. Okay, so in this way, Srila Prabhupada has given great emphasis on being in the association of devotees. And what to do in the association of devotees? Okay, read.
Giving up the company of non-devotees. By the grace of the spiritual master and Krishna, one nourishes the Bhakti Lata by regularly sprinkling it with the water of Shravana Kirtan, hearing and chanting. In this way, the seed of Bhakti Lata sprouts and grows up, and material universe
grows up and up through the whole universe.
Grows up and up through the whole universe until it penetrates the covering of the material universe and reaches the spiritual world. The Bhakti Lata continues to grow until it reaches the topmost planetary system, Goloka Vrindavan, where Krishna lives. There, the creeper takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, and that is its final destination. At that time, the creeper begins to grow the fruits of ecstatic love of God. It is the duty of the devotee who nourishes the creeper to be very careful. It is said that the watering of the creeper must continue. It is not that at a certain stage one can stop chanting and hearing and become a mature devotee. If one stops, one certainly falls down from devotional service. Although one may be very much exalted in devotional service, he should not give up the watering process of Shravan Kirtana. If one gives up that process, it is due to an offense.
Okay, so in the association of devotees, one must water the Bhakti Lata by the process of Shravanam and Kirtanam. So just like the plant, how long the plant requires watering? Yes, throughout the life. Any point the water is not there, it's bound to dry up. So therefore, as Prabhupada says here, if one stops, one certainly falls down from devotional service. So it is not that at a certain stage, one can stop chanting and hearing and become a mature devotee. So at no point of time, one can stop, but one should always continue the Shravan and Kirtan in the association of devotees. Although one may be very much exalted in devotional service, very much exalted, but still he should not give up the watering process of Shravan Kirtan, and one could give up because of an offense. Okay, fine. So we'll take a break here and continue with the next verse. Hare Krishna. Tena smarantavitaram priyamishamartya ye chan vada sutasurat grihavittadaraha ye tvabjana bhavadhiya padaravinda saugandhya lubdha hridayeshu krita prasangaha. Translation.
O Lord, who have a lotus navel, if a person happens to associate with a devotee whose heart always hankers after your lotus feet, seeking always their fragrance, he is never attached to the material body or in a bodily relationship to offspring, friends, home, wealth, and wife, which are very, very dear to materialistic persons. Indeed, he does not care for them.
Yes, so if somebody becomes attached to the Lord in the association of devotees, then he loses attachment to Sutta, Surit, Griha, Vitta, Dara. So all this, he loses attachment to all these materialistic things and materialistic people. So Prabhupada says a special advantage in devotional service is the devotees not only enjoy the transcendental pastimes of the Lord by hearing and chanting and glorifying them, but also are not very much attached to their bodies, unlike the yogis. Further down, he says, from the very beginning, therefore, without wasting time in bodily exercises, a devotee searches out a pure devotee and simply by his association becomes more advanced in spiritual consciousness than any yogi. Because a devotee knows that he is not the body, he is never affected by bodily happiness or distress. Now, in the last sentence, this status of life is possible only when a person is interested in associating with a pure devotee who always enjoys the fragrance of the lotus feet of the Lord. So Vishwanath Thakur writes that destruction of samsara is a secondary effect of bhakti, unsought by the devotees. So that means basically liberation or destruction of samsara. That is a secondary effect which automatically comes by when one performs devotional service. Even if the devotee is not seeking that, he automatically gets that. That's a byproduct. So then the next question can be asked. So Dhruva Maharaj is saying, so if one performs devotional service, then one loses taste for all these material things. Then why did Dhruva Maharaj still have attachment to getting this great kingdom greater than his great grandfather? So in response to that, he speaks the next verse. Tiryannagadvija sarispriha devadatya martyadibhi parichitam sadasad vishesham rupam stavishtam ajate mahadadyanekam natha paramavedmini nayatra vadaha.
My dear Lord, O Supreme Unborn, I know that the different varieties of living entities such as animals, trees, birds, reptiles, demigods, and human beings are spread throughout the universe, which is caused by the total material energy. And I know that they are sometimes manifest and sometimes unmanifest. But I have never experienced the supreme form I behold as I see you now. Now all kinds of methods of theorizing have come to an end.
So he's saying that the reason is because I have experience of so many forms in this material world, but till now, I never had the experience of your form. And therefore, I was attracted to all these material things. But now I have darshan of your form, Rupam Svavishtam. So now I have a darshan of your form. So now, of course, I have no attraction for any of these other forms. Prabhupada writes, the position of a living entity is to render service. Unless he comes to the stage of appreciating the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he engages in the service of the various forms of trees, reptiles, animals, men, demigods, etc. So unless one comes to that platform of devotional service, then one will obviously perform service to so many other people, because that is natural for a living entity. It's natural for the living entity to love and serve. So if he does not love and serve the Supreme Lord, then obviously he has to love and serve so many other living entities. So further down, Prabhupada says, when the Lord touched his conch shell to Dhruva's forehead, real knowledge was revealed from within, and Dhruva could understand the Lord's transcendental form. Okay, so therefore, now he has lost all the taste for all material activities. So then the question is raised. So now he says that now I have understood, I have realized your form. So then the Lord says, okay, you have realized my form. So can you describe my form? So therefore, in the next 3 verses, Dhruva Maharaj describes the Lord's form. Kalpanta etadakilam jatare nagrenan shete puman swadrig ananta sakastadanke Yannabhisinduruha kanchana loka padma garbe dyuman bhagavate pranatosmi tasmai.
My dear Lord, at the end of each millennium, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, dissolves everything manifested within the universe into his belly. He lies down on the lap of Sheshanag. From his navel sprouts a golden lotus flower on a stem, and on that lotus, Lord Brahma is created. I can understand that you are the Supreme Godhead. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
Okay, so here he is describing the Lord's beautiful form as Garbhodaksha Vishnu. And so here he is describing the beautiful personal aspect of the Lord's form. Prabhupada writes towards the end of the purport, it said that anyone who has even a little of the Lord's grace can understand his glories. Others can go on speculating on the absolute truth, but they will always be unable to understand the truths. What is that verse? Prasada leshanugrihita evahi janati tatvam bhagwan mahimno. How does it start? Athapite deva padambujadvaya prasada leshanugrihita evahi. Yes. So unless one has a little bit of the Lord's grace, prasad, one cannot actually understand the Lord's glories. Unless one comes in contact with a devotee, it is not possible to understand the transcendental form or the spiritual world and its transcendental activities. So he continues to describe the Supreme Lord. So in the previous verse, he described the Garbhodaksha Vishnu. And now in the next verse, he describes about the super soul. Tvam nitya mukta parishuddha vibuddha atma kutastha adi purusho bhagavam triyadishaha yadbhudya avastitham akhanditaya swadrishtya drashta stita adhimako vyatirikta ase.
My dear Lord, by your unbroken transcendental glance, you are the supreme witness of all stages of intellectual activities. You are eternal, liberated. Your existence is situated in pure goodness, and you are existent in super soul without change. You are the original personality of Godhead, full with 6 opulences. You are eternally the master of the 3 modes of material nature. Thus, you are always different from the ordinary living entities. As Lord Vishnu, you maintain all the affairs of entire universe, and yet you stand aloof and are the enjoyer of the results of all sacrifices.
Yes, so here he is mentioning about the different qualities of the Lord, Nitya Mukta, Parishuddha, Vibuddha. So he's mentioning all these various qualities, and the purport Srila Prabhupada is basically talking about the differences between the Lord and the living entities. Okay, so that's the main theme of this purport. So having described about Garbhodaksha Vishnu, then the super soul, which is Shirodaksha Vishnu, and in the next verse he describes now about the impersonal Brahman.
Simple question. Here he says, you are the original personality of Godhead. And so how do we understand, because he's not saying the two-handed form of Shamsundar Krishna. So how do we understand this?
Okay, fine.
Statement?
So because ultimately all these are plenary expansions of Krishna only. So therefore, even if it is said that the Garbhodaksha Vishnu or Shirodaksha Vishnu is the original personality of God, there's nothing wrong, because they're all personal expansions of the same Shamsundar Krishna, and they're all, because they're all having the same qualities. So therefore, there is not much difference between the two. And also, as far as the material world is concerned and all the affairs of this universe, which he's essentially referring to, you maintain all the affairs of the universe and so on. So it is mainly the Vishnus who are doing this work in relation to the material worlds. And so therefore, you find in many purports, Srila Prabhupada also, he interchangeably uses Garbhodaksha Vishnu, Shirodaksha Vishnu. Many times he interchanges. Because Srila Prabhupada says, ultimately, there's not much difference between these different Vishnus. So therefore, even if it's said original personality, no problem. That's fine. Okay. And then in the 16th verse, now he describes about the impersonal Brahman. Yasmin viruddhagatayo hi anisham vidyadayo vividakshaktaya anupurvyat Tad Brahma Vishwabhavam Mekamanantamadhyam Anandamatram Avikaramaham Prapadye.
My dear Lord, in your impersonal manifestation of Brahman, there are always two opposing elements, knowledge and ignorance. Your multi-energies are continually manifest, but the impersonal Brahman, which is undivided, original, changeless, unlimited, and blissful, is the cause of the material manifestation. Because you are the same impersonal Brahman, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
So this is, he's describing the impersonal Brahman, which has both Vidya and Avidya. So Prabhupada is writing, all the Supreme Person is the original cause of all causes. His impersonal effulgence known as Brahman is the immediate cause of the material manifestation. The immediate cause is the impersonal Brahman, which is because the entire material manifestation is taking place in the impersonal Brahman. And further down, Prabhupada is quoting from the Ishopanishad, how about the Vidya and Avidya. On account of these different energies, there is continually a manifestation of Vidya and Avidya. And but in fact, the impersonal and personal realization develop in proportion to the development of devotional service. And then Prabhupada is speaking about, quoting Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, is giving the example of the person proceeding towards a destination, the realization of impersonal Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So in these three verses, he has described about the Supreme Lord in 14, 15, and 16. He has described about the Swarupa of the Supreme Lord. And so therefore, in text 17, then the question is raised. Okay, we'll recite the verse and then go to the connection between the previous and this verse. Satya Shisho hi Bhagavam stava pada padmam ashis tathanu bhajata purushartha murtehe apyevam arya Bhagavan paripati dinan vashreva vatsakam anugraha katarosman.
My Lord, O Supreme Lord, you are the supreme personified form of all benediction. Therefore, for one who abides in your devotional service with no other desire, worshipping your lotus feet is better than becoming king and lording it over a kingdom. That is the benediction of worshipping your lotus feet. To ignorant devotees like me, you are the causelessly merciful maintainer, just like a cow who takes care of the newly born calf by supplying milk and giving it protection from attack.
Okay, this is a nice commentary here by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on the verse. Okay, somebody can read this.
O young boy, it is true, you know my Swarupa. Though now you are without material desire, I will give you the result that you previously were determined to achieve. Please take it. Describing his ignorance, Dhruva prays for the sweetness of prema in this verse. O Lord, your lotus feet are the highest blessing, Ashiha, the supreme result, more than acquisition of a kingdom, Ashisha. For whom are you the highest blessing? You are the personification of the Purusharthas for those who worship you without material desire. But the Lord maintains even wretched persons, Dinan, like us, who worship you with desires, by giving a little sweetness of your lotus feet obtained by worship without desire. What is the reason? You are eager to give this mercy. You are eager to give mercy. The Lord thinks, because he is a young man, even though he does not know pure bhakti to me, I will give him a taste of pure bhakti's result, my sweetness. The Lord is like a cow, Vashra, who makes the ignorant calf drink even though the calf does not serve the cow, and who protects the calf from wild animals like wolves. Similarly, the Lord should let me have a taste of the sweetness of bhakti at his lotus feet and protect me from the obstacles to bhakti in the form of material desire.
Okay, so now the Lord is saying, oh, you know my Swarupa. So therefore, though now you're without material desire, I'll still give you the results that you were determined to achieve. So the Lord is determined to give what Dhruva Maharaj was determined to get. The Lord is also determined to give that. But now Dhruva Maharaj has lost the taste for getting those material things. Now he wants the sweetness of prema. That is what he wants. And so therefore, in this verse, he's praying that at that time I was ignorant. So therefore, I did not know what to ask, what not to ask. But now I simply want prema. And so therefore, the Lord is saying that, so therefore, Dhruva Maharaj is saying that the Lord is like a cow. And so even though the calf may be ignorant, the calf may not understand what is good, what is bad, the calf may not understand, but the cow knows, and the cow gives milk and protection and everything, whatever is required. So therefore, here Dhruva Maharaj is saying that, I'm praying to the Lord that you are like a cow. And so therefore, please give me the sweetness of bhakti, prema. That is what I want. And protect me from all the obstacles of bhakti in the form of material desires. So the real obstacles are material desires. So in this way, Dhruva Maharaj is praying to the Lord for his mercy. Srila Prabhupada writes, such an adulterated devotee, speaking about the adulterated devotee, can never see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. He therefore felt very grateful for the causeless mercy of the Lord. So even though he had material desires, the Lord appeared before him. Therefore, he's feeling very grateful. Towards the end of the first paragraph, a devotee must be very sincere in his devotional service. Then, although there may be many things wrong on the devotee's part, Krishna will guide him and gradually elevate him to the highest position of devotional service. So, a very important statement. So if the sincerity is there, then even though there may be so many mistakes, so many obstacles, so many things may be there, but the Lord will give the guidance. So because the Lord is, after all, he is thinking about the welfare of the devotee, Suridam Sarva Bhutanam. So therefore the Lord, he is ready to guide the devotee because of the sincerity. Even though there may be some material motivation, some contamination, some obstacles, the Lord removes all that and helps the devotee progress. Yoga kshemam vahamyaham. So in the purport to that verse, Srila Prabhupada writes, what is the meaning of yoga kshema? So the Lord helps the devotee to make progress on the path of devotional service. That is the yoga. And the kshema is whatever devotional service the devotee has performed, he protects that. So in this way, the Lord always helps the devotee. But for that, Ananyas Chintayanto Mam. For that is the qualification, that is the condition. And therefore, the sincerity in performing devotional service, that is the qualification by which the Lord reciprocates. And so therefore, here the Lord is being addressed as Purushartha Murti, the ultimate goal of life. And then Prabhupada is explaining what is the ultimate Purushartha, that is Pancham Purushartha, that is Prema. That is what Dhruva Maharaj is aspiring for at this point of time. So the last sentence of the purport, Dhruva Maharaj, being cognizant of his desire for material benefit, wanted protection from the Lord so that he might not be misled or deviated from the path of devotional service by material desires. So that is what he wants. He wants the protection of his devotional service from material desires. So in this way, Dhruva Maharaj offered these wonderful prayers to the Lord. Any questions or clarifications on this section of Dhruva Maharaj's prayers?
Yesterday, when I was asking about that association of devotees is required, and then Sham Jagannath had shared that understanding that he's internally connecting to the master's instruction. So that's, I had asked that how, because here we talk very clearly, like you shared also so many elaborate purports on us to stay in the ISKCON movement. So practically Prabhupada is sharing, not that stay with the instruction of a great soul and then remain aloof. So now still I could not reconcile the feature.
So where's the association for Dhruva Maharaj? That's the question, right?
For Dhruva Maharaj, for Narad's boy also, that time he went. So what we see is that in the prayers, eventually they all pray for this kind of a setup. But in their own life example, like we hear Bharat Maharaj case and we say problem case. And here they're successful case study, so we just say Hari Bol. And if they had become problem case also, then it would have been a lesson for us that association is important. But then how do we?
Okay, so here, going into the next section of Dhruva Maharaj's lamentation. So there it is mentioned. So here he is praying for the association. But the Lord, instead of giving him the association of devotees, so he gives him the kingdom. And so therefore, Dhruva Maharaj is lamenting that actually I wanted association, but the Lord did not give me that association of devotees. But of course, Dhruva Maharaj continues his practice of devotional service. And of course, the other point is also, this is Satya Yuga, where most people are practicing all the principles of dharma. So it is not that he is surrounded by non-devotees. But immediately the Lord does not give him the direct association of devotees, does not give him prema. He does not give him all that in a very direct sense. And that is why Dhruva Maharaj actually laments that actually I wanted that. I wanted prema in the association of devotees. But because I had the previous material desires, therefore the Lord does not immediately fulfill them. Rather, he gives me the kingdom to rule for 36,000 years. So that was Dhruva Maharaj's lamentation. But yet, of course, Dhruva Maharaj is no ordinary devotee. Of course, he is on the liberate platform, having association of direct association of the Supreme Lord. And of course, also even over there, it's not that he's bereft of the association of devotees, because obviously most of the people are practicing dharma. And so the association is definitely there. And he goes on. And the Lord also gives him the assurance. The Lord gives him the assurance, as we will be seeing now. The Lord is going to speak to him, and he gives him the assurance that you will definitely achieve the spiritual world. So the assurance is given. So therefore, obviously, there cannot be any problems in Dhruva Maharaj's life, because the Lord's protection is definitely there. The blessings of the Lord is definitely there. And that's my understanding.
Yes, it means after he met the Lord, then certain benedictions, certain way they manifested. What I'm asking is that in the Abhiday, which is given by the spiritual master, like he was going to the forest. So he wanted to attain the Lord, and Narad Muni is his guru. So if association of devotees is the basic setup in which he should attain that goal, then he should put him into some ashram setup where he actually can grow, and because he has material desires also. It's not like he's like free from material desires and he cannot get lost due to some distractions. He has a material desire, so better be safe in the association of devotees and be focused in the goal. So how do we?
So as far as the association is concerned, for his performance of devotional service, he got the association of Narad Muni, who gave him instructions, who gave him the process. That is the Abhideya, which he got from a devotee. And then he practiced that as per those instructions. And then everything is so quick, isn't it? So it's not that he had to go to some ashram and get some training, everything was fast forwarded. 6 months direct darshan of the Lord. So that is the potency of Narad Muni. That much association was sufficient for him. That much association was sufficient. He got the association, he got the instruction, the Abhideya was given, he practiced it, finished. But now, having darshan of the Supreme Lord, he's still praying for the association of devotees, where actually he can experience the bliss of prema. That is what he's asking for now. But then that the Lord doesn't give immediately. That is why he left. Somebody you want to add something? You want to add something to this discussion? Okay. Anybody wants to add something to this discussion? Yes.
Hare Krishna. This aspect of association, it can be considered in two ways. That is, one thing is the substance and another thing is the form in which it can be taken. So there can be examples where people have apparently no proper association outside around them, but they were still fixed in their devotional service. Like you see the example of Vidura or Vibhishana. Again, these are all Shastric examples, but also we can see within ISKCON sometimes there are devotees who are caught up in a very extreme place, but they're very Krishna conscious. And also we can see that people may be in the middle of very good setup, very good association, but still they may not take to devotional service. So it is not that the setup is not important, but within that setup one has to internalize it. That is the main aspect.
Right.
And sometimes the internalization may happen without the external setup. That is what happened in the case of Dhruva Maharaj, for example. Even Prahlad Maharaj, he heard in the womb, and then outside what he all had was, but he could retain it. So of course, these are Shastric examples, but the principles are similar. that we hear that in Russia there was so much of opposition. So some sustained and many got drifted away also. That's also fact. So when it comes to this age, then definitely Srila Prabhupada made a system because he knew that in Kali Yuga, an average person is very weak. He can't. Even if you see in the case of Goswamis, they were not all six living together all the time. Even if you see that. They were doing bhajan here, there, going. Because Shravanam Kirtanam ultimately leads to Smaranam. And Smaranam, through Smaranam, once one comes to the stage, one is actually in touch with the Nam Rup Gunalila of the Lord. That's a stage itself, which he asks further. But still, at that stage, one relishes to hear and chant with devotees. Although he will not get drifted, because remembering the Lord is personally guiding him as Paramatma. And Bharat Maharaj's case is an extreme example, as we say that there are multiple lessons Lord is teaching. So external thing is not denied, but still one has to understand that sometimes without external also one can internalize. And yet one relishes. That means a pure devotee relishes more to be with devotees and chanting and hearing than a neophyte. Neophyte may not have taste for hearing chanting. But for him, Smaranam also nourishes him. And that's how we see in the life of such exalted people that once a person had come to a stage, that one has come to Smaranam stage where one can remember the Lord as per the advancement, then even the external settings are not as may be required, still one will continue. But one will not deny that, or one will not say that I don't want it.
Right.
But without want, one will not fall down. But till one has come to that stage, till then, if he just doesn't have the setup itself, doesn't have association in a physical gross way, then he will never grow to that. It's just like when you become expert, say driver, then along with driving, one can talk on mobile and one can do so many things, one hand. But while learning, one has to learn with ABC and all the things. And while learning, one cannot say, but expert, he can do. So similarly, that Smaranam stage, one can actually, in association with the Lord. And similarly, associate with the devotee also through Smaranam, through remembering the instruction, through following that. Like Srila Prabhupada also, in his journey, he had no one. For 1 year, he had no association. Then also the devotees came, but it was not that Prabhupada was taking their association in terms of learning something. He was training them, guiding them, and he relished it also. Later he chanted with them. We can see so many videos of Prabhupada dancing in Rath Yatra. He really relished it. But Prabhupada was complete in himself because he had that connection. So these are the stages. Just like in yoga, we have the yoga Ruda and yoga, what is it? Yoga Ruruksha. One is the sadhaka, one is the siddha. Krishna also tells, for a sadhaka, work is the means, and for a siddha, giving a work is the stage. So similarly, association, these two aspects have to be understood, then it can be reconciled. If we just take the form aspect, then it will not be reconciled. But otherwise, these two aspects, if we take, then for different situations, can be reconciled.
Right. Thank you. In the commentary to Machitta Madgata Prana also, Vishwanath Thakur says it's applicable for both. It's applicable for the sadhakas as well as the siddhas. So Katiyantascha Mam Nityam Tushyanti cha Ramanti cha. So Tushyanti Ramanti is applicable to both the sadhakas also and the siddhas also. So they also relish. So, but valid points, very good points. Thank you for that. Somebody want, Shyam Singh, you want to?
What kind of determination he had, Dhruva Maharaj. It's a very special case. And he could, this we can see that he took the instruction so seriously. So that also shows that he has taken that association very seriously, and that's why he was able to follow. Same thing we see in the case of Narada Boy. Although the situation was very difficult, but the kind of association he had taken, and that helped him to go on without deviation. So they had taken that association very seriously, and that's why they were able to follow. So external, the situation, we may not see that that kind of setup because that was the situation, but they had taken that association very seriously.
Right. Thank you. Okay, Toshan.
This at the beginning he mentions these 12 prayers are like 12 Adityas. Vishwanath Thakur in the beginning of this prayer he writes the Dhruva Maharaj, the prayers he's going to offer, they're like 12 Adityas. Dwadash Aditya. Yeah. So how Prabhuji these prayers, all these prayers are so illuminating like this?
I'm not very clear actually. I mean, you have to
how
you have to show me the reference actually, what exactly he's saying. Then maybe we can.
I'm not having immediately, but
okay, okay, you show me the reference, then we'll discuss. Okay.
एसोसिएशन अभी जो हरिदास ठाकुर है और जो भी हमारे आचार्य है तो उनका तो 24 घंटा एसोसिएशन नहीं था, लेकिन वो एसोसिएशन में भी आते थे इन बिटवीन। तो अभी हम जो प्रहलाद महाराज का भी देखते हैं, तो उनको भी एसोसिएशन नहीं था, और ध्रुव महाराज का भी एसोसिएशन नहीं था, लेकिन उनको एसोसिएशन था कि उनका जो नारद मुनि ने दिया था, तो वो स्ट्रॉन्ग एसोसिएशन था। तो हमारे जीवन में देखते हैं कि हम 24 घंटा एसोसिएशन में है, लेकिन तो भी कुछ, जैसे कि हम यहाँ भी इतने वक्त है, तो उसमें से भी हमारे साथ रह के या होके वो भी एसोसिएशन छोड़ के जाते हैं। तो वो उनका पर्सनल डिटर्मिनेशन कम है या कि एसोसिएशन का समस्या है?
तो एसोसिएशन सबके लिए है, लेकिन कौन कितना लाभ उठाता है उसके पर निर्भर है ना। तो एसोसिएशन है सबके लिए।
हाँ, उसका
बुक्स है, ये भी एसोसिएशन है, इतने सारे भक्त लोग हैं, वो भी एसोसिएशन है, हरिनाम है, वो भी एसोसिएशन है। एसोसिएशन तो सबके लिए अवेलेबल है।
हाँ, तो
लेकिन व्यक्ति क्या उसका लाभ उठाता है या नहीं, उसके ऊपर निर्भर है। तो मुझे तो लाभ उठाना वो मेरे लिए है ना, मुझे तो वो करना ही पड़ेगा।
हाँ, तो मैं अभी आपको मैं अथॉरिटी मान रहा हूँ, और आप सबको एसोसिएशन भी दे रहे और शास्त्र भी सिखा रहे, लेकिन और आप सब बोल रहे कि आपका एसोसिएशन लेना चाहिए, लेकिन एक दिन आप ही सब हम सबको छोड़ के जा रहे, तो फिर वो एसोसिएशन, फिर हम किसके ऊपर निर्भर रहे कि हमने आपको तो प्योर डिवोटी मान के आपका एसोसिएशन ले रहे थे। तो फिर एसोसिएशन हम कोई मापदंड होना चाहिए ना कि किसका एसोसिएशन लेना है। नहीं,
हाँ, तो यहाँ पर हमने कई सारे परपुट हमने देखा है, प्रभुपाद जी कहते हैं कि किसका एसोसिएशन लेना चाहिए, प्योर
हाँ, नहीं,
डिवोटीज।
लेकिन आप बोल रहे हैं कि जब तक वो मैसेज दे रहा है, समझो आप वो कुर्सी पे बैठे हैं, हाँ, और हमें लेक्चर दे रहे हैं, तो आप प्योर डिवोटी, और जैसे कुर्सी के नीचे उतर गए तो प्योर डिवोटी नहीं, आप कुछ दूसरे एक्टिविटी में लग गए तो प्योर डिवोटी नहीं, फिर वो फिर से आ गए तो
जब श्रील प्रभुपाद जी को पूछा गया कि क्या आप परफेक्ट हैं, श्रील प्रभुपाद जी ने कहा मैं परफेक्ट नहीं हूं, लेकिन जो मैसेज है वो परफेक्ट है। तो जब तक व्यक्ति वो जो भगवत संदेश है उसको दोहरा रहा है, वो परफेक्ट है।
हाँ, वही तो बोल रहा हूँ ना मैं, कि आप दोहरा रहे, लेकिन ये रूम में आप ठीक है, परफेक्ट है, लेकिन जैसे होते हैं कि बाहर जाके खाना रेस्टोरेंट में आप चाय पी के आ रहे, हाँ, तो आप आप बोल रहे नहीं मैं वो नहीं, मैं तो बाहर गया, अभी तो मैं प्योर दे रहा हूँ ना।
तो अगर कोई वैसा करता है ना, अगर कोई वैसा करता है तो उसको ये कुर्सी नहीं दिया जाए।
नहीं, आप क्या बोल रहे हैं कि अगर वो प्योर मैसेज दे रहे हैं तो आप तो प्योर मैसेज दे रहे हैं ना अभी, लेकिन जैसे आप हॉल के बाहर जा रहे हैं, तो फिर उसको क्या करना, वो तो इसलिए वो 24 घंटा अगर उसमें रत है तो उसका एसोसिएशन लेना है। लेकिन हमें दिख रहा है कोई कि हम भले हमारा अथॉरिटी है, लेकिन मुझे दिख रहा है, इनको नहीं दिख रहा है, मैं ऊपर बैठा हूँ कुर्सी पे और ये नीचे बैठे, तो उनको नहीं दिख रहा है वो कॉर्नर में क्या कर रहे हैं, मुझे दिख रहा है, और लेकिन आप बोल रहे हैं कि नहीं इनका एसोसिएशन लो। तो
देखिए, एसोसिएशन जबरदस्ती नहीं होता है। अगर हमें प्रेरणा प्राप्त हो रही है तो हम एसोसिएशन ले सकते हैं, नहीं मिल रहा है तो मत।
हाँ, मुझे वही कहना था कि हमें जबरदस्ती एसोसिएशन
जबरदस्ती कुछ नहीं, भक्ति में कुछ जबरदस्ती नहीं है, सब स्वेच्छा से होता है, कुछ जबरदस्ती नहीं। ये देखिए, ये क्लास में जबरदस्ती नहीं है, तो इसलिए कुछ लोग आते हैं, कुछ लोग जाते हैं, बीच में चले जाते हैं, कुछ जबरदस्ती नहीं है, सब स्वेच्छा पर। भक्ति मतलब स्वेच्छा। हाँ, तो देखिए यहाँ क्लास में ही हम देख रहे हैं, हाँ, तो सब स्वेच्छा के ऊपर, हम कुछ जबरदस्ती नहीं करते।
तो हमें एसोसिएशन ग्रंथ और व्यक्ति भागवत दोनों का ही दृढ़ता से लेना चाहिए।
सही बात है, एकदम बिल्कुल सही।
थैंक यू,
धन्यवाद। हरे कृष्ण। हाँ, ओके, हाँ, बोलिए श्रीपद महाप्रभु।
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes,
just in that discussion, what Revatipati Prabhu was saying, he very wonderfully explained. I just remembered one incident which Radhanath Swami Maharaj explains in one of the lecture, that there was one person who came to New Vrindavan and he looked at the deity of Prabhupada and he offered obeisances very well. But externally he was looking as if a very normal person. Normal hairs, normal look, no tilak, nothing like that, no kantimala. But he offered obeisances to Prabhupada. And then Maharaj saw him, and then Maharaj thought, let me talk to him. So Maharaj spoke with him. Then Maharaj came to know that he is chanting 16 rounds for quite a long period of time. And then he asked, how are you chanting? So he said, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. He did not know proper pronunciation. H-A-R-E, he pronounces Hare. And then Maharaj explained him the right pronunciation. And then Maharaj explained further things of Krishna consciousness. And in this way, he got corrected in a proper way. So just corroborating what Revatipati was saying, that there was actually no proper setup for him, but still he could pick up chanting from books of Srila Prabhupada, and finally he ended up in the right association.
Good. Thank you for sharing the example. Okay, so we go to the next section where the Lord benedicts Dhruva. Okay, somebody can read the translations now. Next verse, text 18.
The great sage Maitreya continued, "My dear Vidura, when Dhruva Maharaj, who had good intentions in his heart, finished his prayer, the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, who is very kind to his devotees and servants, congratulated him, speaking as follows."
Okay, text 19. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Vedaham te vyavasitam Ridhi Rajanya Balaka Tat Prayachami Badram te Durapam Api Suvrata.
The personality of Godhead said, "My dear Dhruva, son of king, you have executed pious vows, and I also know the desire within your heart. Although your desire is very ambitious and very difficult to fulfill, I shall favor you with its fulfillment. All good fortune unto you."
Okay, so here Prabhupada is mentioning that the fact is that Dhruva Maharaj was very much afraid in his mind, for he had aspired after material benefit in discharging his devotional service, and this was hampering him from reaching the stage of love of God. So that was his fear, that I desired a material thing. Now will I get love of God? That was his fear. So by saying Bhadram Te, by saying all good fortune unto you, the Lord is assuring him, don't worry. I'll fulfill your material desires also, but at the same time, you'll get prema also. I'll give you both. So that is the import of Bhadram Te. And yes. Towards the end of the purport, Prabhupada writes, generally, the Lord does not award a pure devotee material opulence, even though he may desire it. But Dhruva Maharaj's case was different. The Lord knew that he was such a great devotee that in spite of having material opulence, he would never be deviated from love of God. So therefore, he gave him material opulence, but at the same time gave him love. Please continue reading, 2021.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead continued, "My dear Dhruva, I shall award you the glowing planet known as the pole star, which will continue to exist even after the dissolution at the end of the millennium. No one has ever ruled this planet, which is surrounded by all the solar systems, planets, and stars. All the luminaries in the sky circumambulate this planet, just as bulls tread around a central pole for the purpose of crushing grains. Keeping the pole star to their right, all the stars inhabited by the great sages like Dharma, Agni, Kashyapa, and Shukra circumambulate this planet, which continues to exist even after the dissolution of all others."
Okay, so this is Dhruva Loka. It's Dhruva. It is eternal. Okay, go ahead.
"After your father goes to the forest and awards you the rule of his kingdom, you will rule continuously the entire world for 36,000 years, and all your senses will continue to be as strong as they are now. You will never become old."
Next.
The Lord continued, "Sometime in the future, your brother Uttama will go hunting in the forest, and while absorbed in hunting, he will be killed. Your stepmother Suruchi, being maddened upon the death of her son, will go to search him out in the forest, but she will be devoured by a forest fire."
You can read this purport.
Purport. Dhruva Maharaj came to the forest to search out the Supreme Personality of Godhead with a revenging spirit against his stepmother. His stepmother had insulted Dhruva, who was not an ordinary person but a great Vaishnava. An offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava is the greatest offense in this world. Because of having insulted Dhruva Maharaj, Suruchi would become mad upon the death of her son and would enter a forest fire, and thus her life would be ended. This was specifically mentioned by the Lord to Dhruva because he was determined for revenge against her. From this, we should take the lesson that we should never try to insult a Vaishnava. Not only should we not insult a Vaishnava, but we should not insult anyone unnecessarily. When Suruchi insulted Dhruva Maharaj, he was just a child. She, of course, did not know that Dhruva was a great recognized Vaishnava, and so her offense was committed unknowingly. When one serves a Vaishnava unknowingly, one still gets the good result, and if one unknowingly insults a Vaishnava, one suffers the bad result. A Vaishnava is especially favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pleasing him or displeasing him directly affects the pleasure and displeasure of the Supreme Lord. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his 8 stanzas of prayer to the spiritual master, has sung Yasya Prasadat Bhagavat Prasadaha. By pleasing the spiritual master, who is a pure Vaishnava, one pleases the personality of Godhead. But if one displeases the spiritual master, one does not know where he is going.
Okay, so an important lesson. So if even unknowingly, one should try to avoid to offending any Vaishnava. And what to speak of Vaishnava, Prabhupada says any living entity also, because no one knows which living entity will become how exalted a Vaishnava at any point of time. So therefore, the important lesson is that one should always be careful while dealing with anyone. And that's the nature of a Vaishnava. A devotee is always amanina manadena. So always respectful to all living entities. So if one is always having that type of behavior, then one will always try to be free from offenses, try to, as we have been discussing in the previous class, also austerity of speech, austerity of the body, austerity of the mind. Krishna speaking all these things in the Bhagavad Gita. So as an austerity, one can try and practice good behavior so that one is always very careful. Okay, please continue reading the next 2 verses, which the Lord is speaking.
The Lord continued, I am the heart of all sacrifices. You will be able to perform many great sacrifices and also give great charities. In this way, you will be able to enjoy the blessings of material happiness in this life, and at the time of your death, you will be able to remember me. Okay, so the Lord is giving assurance that at the time of death, you will be able to remember me. Ante mam samsmarayishyasi. So the Lord is giving that assurance. Material happiness also, at the end, you'll be able to remember me and you will go back to the spiritual worlds. Prabhupada writes in this purport, our Krishna conscious movement is designed to teach people and to learn ourselves the exact instruction of the personality of Godhead. In this way, we shall continuously perform the Sankirtan Yajna and continuously chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Then at the end of our lives, we shall certainly be able to remember Krishna and our program of life will be successful. In this age, distribution of prasad has replaced distribution of money. No one has sufficient money to distribute, but if we distribute Krishna prasad as far as possible, this is more valuable than the distribution of money. So this is how we can. And the last verse.
The personality of Godhead continued, my dear Dhruva, after your material life in this body, you will go to my planet, which is always offered obeisances by the residents of all other planetary systems. It is situated above the planets of the 7 rishis, and having gone there, you will never have to come back again to this material world.
Okay. So there are 2 opinions on this, which Vishwanath Thakur explains, that on one hand, the Dhruva Loka itself is like an eternal dham, never to be destroyed. So one opinion is that Dhruva Maharaj, he will rule this world for 36,000 years. At the end of that, he will go to the Dhruva planet, which will stay till the end of Brahma's life. And at the end of Brahma's life, then he will go to actually Vaikuntha. He will leave the Dhruva Loka also and he'll go back to Vaikuntha. But Dhruva Loka itself is also eternal. That is itself like Vaikuntha. In fact, it's described that that's a place where Shirodaksha Vishnu resides. It's like Shvetadvip. So therefore, the other opinion is that he continues to live over there because it is as good as Vaikuntha. But from this verse, it appears that at the end of his life on Dhruva Loka, then he will actually go to Vaikuntha, where Lord Vishnu resides. So both the opinions are there. In any case, it is the eternal abode of the Lord. So the Lord is giving all these assurances to Dhruva Maharaj And because he had that revengeful attitude towards Suruchi and Uttam, so then the Lord is also saying that they will also be punished. So in this way, all of Dhruva Maharaj's material desires also have been fulfilled. And at the end, he will go back to the spiritual world. In this way, the Lord fulfills all of Dhruva Maharaj's desires. But of course, in the next section, we will see how Dhruva Maharaj repents for it. And then, so okay. So I hope everyone is aware that we are having class tomorrow also, because Monday is Ekadashi. So we're not having class on Monday. So instead of Monday, we're having class tomorrow. Okay. We'll continue tomorrow. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Samved Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.